As part of leadership series, today I will be talking on a model for resolving conflicts. Let's go through a simple seven-step process which you see here for resolving conflicts. And when you have your next conflict, you might even write these seven steps down or print them out and have them in front of you and think about them as you go through trying to resolve the conflict. The principles, the nine principles that we talked about in the previous lecture are all embedded in these steps, and all your listening skills are embedded in these steps. So step number one, find agreement. You have your two parties there who are in disagreement, and let's first define the problem. Let's agree on what the problem is, because very often people do not see the problem as the same problem. They are actually arguing over something that in their mind, it is like wars. I was in a war. I found that both the participants in the war, they are fighting different wars. They are not fighting the same war. So it is really helpful to understand what war they are fighting, what is the problem as they see it. When you think about how the two parties see the conflict that they are in, they may actually not be in the same conflict, right? Like two participants in the war may not really be fighting the same war. They have different ideas about why they are there. So if you can understand what the problem is from each perspective, and then what are they in agreement about, now they are probably both in agreement that we want to perform well. We both are in agreement. With that, we want the team to do well. We both in agreement that we want to serve our customer well. We both are in agreement that we want to improve the process. For example, my guess is you can find agreement between the two parties, and that's always a good place to start. Clarify exactly what the disagreement is, and here is where you are going to use your reflective listening skills. You are going to listen to each person explain what they see as the disagreement or the conflict, the problem. Let them hear each other, right? Or if you are part of it, you are explaining how you see it, and then you will be listening. You are listening well to how the other person sees that, and you cannot solve a problem unless you understand what the disagreement is about. So you use your good listening skills, express empathy. Now I cannot explain this, well, cause there is sort of magic, there is sort of chemistry, and expressing empathy is like whiling the gears, right? When you understand my point of view, when you understand my problem, when you understand why I am concerned, and not just understanding it factually, but understanding how it feels, understanding why it is a problem for me, why I am concerned, why I am hurt, whatever the situation is, the simple act of understanding my feelings and my positions relaxes me. Very often people will argue harder and louder, not because of the actual problem, but because they just do not feel like you are listening to me. You are not understanding me, so I sort of escalate the problem. I escalate my tone of voice, my volume, how loud I am until I hear you say, I can understand why that is a problem. I can understand that's a painful for you. I can understand that that's a frustrating for you. Those statements, are very powerful part of conflict resolution. Once you have understood why people feel the way they do, and what their positions are, and what we are in agreement with, now let's start to be creative. Let's kind of brainstorm alternatives, right? Let's think about, let's make a list of three, five 10 possible solutions that are not necessarily yours but are others. Let's think about other solutions to the problem. And when we sort of brainstorm different solutions to a problem, we seek alternatives. We may find an alternative we both agree and we can abandon our previous positions. That is very, very common. So, just the act of brainstorming alternatives to get to our shared goals where we both want to get to, that helps us to resolve a conflict. Let's agree on a criteria for a solution. Does it have to be immediate? Can it be a long-term solution? Does it just involve the two of us, or does it need to involve 10 other people? What are the criteria for what good solutions to this conflict would like look like? Then they try combining ideas, and again, this sort of gets away from the false dichotomy ideas. Very often, we can take the solution that one person has and the solution that another person has and combine them. They are not always either or right. So, I consulted with the school board of elementary school that my children were going to some years ago, and they had a conflict. Half of the staff of the school and the board felt that the core principal purpose of the school was to create a of learning in the children. There was another camp that said, well, yeah, that's a great, but they have to be able to pass tests. Because if they are going now to the public high school and another high school, they are going to be tested and they have to know some maths, they have to know some history, they have to know stuff, right? Because love for learning is not a test, not on a test. But the math is on a test, and they had sort of created these camps where they really felt like we had to choose whether our core mission was to create love of learning or knowledge. And it was like a big battle in the school. It may sound silly to you, but it was not silly to me them. And I just drew this, matrix, being the management consultant that I am, and I love of learning of one side and the knowledge of the other side, and said, is it possible to go northwest, increasing love of learning, at the same time increasing knowledge? And I said that seems like similar idea, but for them it was a big breakthrough. It was like, oh yeah, maybe we can figure out how to teach in a way and conduct our classroom in a way where they are actually learning some math, but doing it in a way that's a fun. And that's learning to love learning as opposed to just learning to love math or learning math. Any of that made sense. So try combining, eliminating false dichotomies, be creative with new possible solutions. Now you can fulfill your criteria with some combination of the previous ideas that have been floated. And then, you reach consciousness. You ask those who are engaged in the conflict, can you both agree that we will try the following? And it's very good. And this is sort of consistent and learn lean management, data production system, problem solving. Every solution is an experiment, okay? So we do not have to agree that a course of action is the ultimate final and a state course of action. Let's agree to try this and see what happens, see if it works, and then let's come back and let's try, by something else, modify it or agree that we just keep doing that. So it is very, very, very helpful in terms of reaching consciousness to understand that what we are really trying to agree on is a consciousness to move forward with an experiment. And people are more likely to accept that than thinking that this is one of the final solution to a problem. I hope those 7 steps make sense. Try them out next time you have a conflict and see how they work for you. Thanks a lot.